There are now reports that Israel attacked a radar station in Iran in the last hour. And joining us right now to talk more about it is Senator Rand Paul. He's been one of the most outspoken critics of the president's tax bill, but he says he's not an absolute no. Senator, thanks for being with us. We can talk about the tax bill in just a moment, but why don't we focus first on what's happening this morning with this ceasefire that President Trump has tried to broker between Israel and Iran. Obviously, he's shown some frustration with how each side has behaved in the hours since that proposed ceasefire. You yesterday posted on X that we must not forget Congress holds the war power. If we don't, our nation drifts further from both liberty and peace. What do you think of what the president has done, though, with this ceasefire and how these other two nations are reacting?
You know, the track record of the U.S. foreign interventions in the Middle East is not a good one. I mean, if you look at, the U.S., we have noble intentions. We want, there to be peace and stability in the Middle East. And yet the unintended consequences of Libya, of Iraq, of Afghanistan are 10, 20-year-long history of wars, trillions of dollars spent, and really more chaos than stability comes out of this. I hope this is an exception. I hope this war ends quickly. I hope the ceasefire holds. But if you look at the history of the last 20 years, that has not been the history of our intervention. So I'm hoping it holds, and only time will tell.
You point out some of the interventions we've had in the past, Libya, Afghanistan, and some of those incursions. I think President Trump intended for this to be a very strategic and limited intervention in terms of going after the nuclear facilities in Iran. Was that okay to do without Congress's approval? Because it seems like that would be pretty difficult to pull off and have the same level of secrecy and therefore the same level of success if he had gone to Congress first.
I think the intention is a limited military strike, but what happens if a significant number of our soldiers are killed? The neoconservatives, the warmongers in D.C. will immediately call for soldiers on the ground. They'll call for more intervention, and it escalates. I hope it doesn't, but I think it's yet to be determined what happens in this war. So, like I say, time will tell. My hope is that it is a limited excursion and will not get worse.
Let's shift our attention to the tax bill. You have been basically a hard no on this proposal because you don't like what it does in terms of spending more, potentially blowing out the deficit to even higher levels. I think more recently, though, you've said you're not necessarily an absolute no. What would it take to convince you to vote for this bill?
Well, I'm a hard yes on the tax portion of it. I voted for the tax cuts in 2017. I think they led to a historic low in unemployment and a great economy. I'm for that. I think we should even add more tax cuts. I don't accept the CBO argument that they won't bring in more revenue. I think initially revenue goes down, but through economic growth, I think they will pay for themselves. So the tax cut portion I'm fine with. The spending cuts are weak, they're anemic, and they need to do more. Nothing in the bill changes the course of the accumulation of debt. We're accumulating about $2 trillion in debt every year. That's ongoing, and the bill will not materially change the direction of the accumulation of debt. But the most bothersome thing to me in the bill is that they're going to expand the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. If you have an irresponsible teenager and they max out their credit cards, you don't give them more credit, you give them less credit. You tell them to pay down their credit card. Congress is like an irresponsible teenager. They've shown that they're not good with money. So we should be giving them small increments of debt ceiling and then checking to see if they're behaving well with their money. So I'd give them about 3 months, and I'd come back in 3 months and say, what have you done to restrain your spending? And I'd have this vote every 3 months. Now, the administration doesn't want that. Most of the leaders don't. They're embarrassed by the vote because they tell the voters at home they're for balanced budgets and controlling the debt, and yet each year the debt goes up by trillions of dollars, and they've failed at their job, and the evidence of their failure is the debt ceiling vote. So presidents of both parties, leadership of both parties, they all want to avoid debt ceiling votes, so they are adding massive amounts, trying to get a couple years down the road so they don't have to face the consequences of their actions.
Senator, I know that the Senate, that body is considering voting as early as this week as to whether to push this tax bill back to Congress or to the House. They're doing their own kind of whip count right now, but I wonder if you are as well. We've spoken to several Republican senators who have said that they would not vote for the bill as it stands right now. That would include you, Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, Mike Lee. Are you all doing your own whip count right now, or are each of you acting individually?
All it takes is those four. Those four can dramatically change the bill. And I think there's more courage on the right, frankly, than there is on the left of the Republican caucus. And I think that if the conservatives will hold strong, the bill could be materially changed for the better. And that means adding in more spending cuts. I also think the debt ceiling needs to be a separate vote. We'll see whether or not I win that part of the battle or not. But I do believe the bill is going to become less bad, more beautiful, but it has a ways to go.
We just spoke with a member of the Trump administration in the last 20 or 30 minutes who said that this bill is going to get passed and it will be passed by July 4th. The changes you're talking about will not take place by then. So do you think this will be passed by July 4th?
We'll see. I think the changes in the bill will happen up until the last minute until we vote. There will be there is the bill, and then there'll be a replacement to the bill in the first vote, what they call a manager's package, and they'll have all of this stuff added in. So there's going to be dozens and dozens and dozens of changes before we get to the final product. And I do think if conservatives stand together, if the public calls in and says we've got to do something about the debt, I think there still is a chance that the bill could become much better.
You know, Senator, just returning just for a second, I just wonder, want to get your comment on this. There's a real fissure, obviously, in the Republican Party, neocon, warmongers on one side, and then isolationists on the other side. They really, I don't know if they'd ever even go outside of our borders in this country for any reason. So in this case, we know, just let me finish. We know that Iran was getting close, or at least that's a lot of indications, if you believe that. Only one country had the capacity to take Fordo. It had a B-2 bomber, had the bunker busters. Isn't it possible if it was limited to that, and the whole world agrees that they can't have a nuclear weapon, and in this case, the United States was the only country that could have done it. Is it possible that someday, if it doesn't get out of hand now, you would say I was wrong and that this was a brilliant and courageous move by the president? Would you ever say that?
I think that you mischaracterize the positions. There are no isolationists that would never go outside of our borders. When we were attacked on 9/11, even the most libertarian members of Congress, my father included, voted to go after those who attacked us. When World War II happened, there were many people who hesitated to get involved in a European war, but when we were attacked, the vote was nearly unanimous.
Right, but in this particular instance,
the people. I think you mischaracterize the people who are for less intervention. They are not for isolation.
Right.
And I would say probably the most isolationist. I would say perhaps the most isolationist wing of the party are those who don't want to trade with the world, who want to isolate us from trade. Okay. So I would characterize the polar opposites of our party much differently. As far as what happens in this instance, it's yet to be determined. There are reports that 400 kilograms of uranium were moved and weren't affected by this. And the problem with enrichment is you can't bomb away the knowledge, but also once you get to highly enriched uranium, it doesn't take much. 400 kilograms is thought to be enough for 10 different bombs, so about 40 kilograms of bomb. And so these can be hidden anywhere. So they may well have taken it out, they may well negotiate, or it may well that this goes on, and it did not.
Are you arguing we need to, so you're arguing for more? So you're arguing that now we need to take out the, so I don't know, that's inconsistent. You didn't want to do the first one, but now you're arguing we need to get but we didn't do enough.
No, I think you're mischaracterizing this again. What I would say is that I'm arguing that the intervention, the military intervention, may not have been successful, as people are saying, and also that there may not be a military answer to this, that ultimately the answer to the end of the nuclear program is going to involve diplomacy.
Senator, the only thing I'd say with that is your argument definitely bolsters the Israeli position that they need to be able to continue to take out the missiles that are there so that none of the uranium that's left over could be put on a missile and launched towards anywhere in Israel.
Unless you can bomb away their knowledge to make missiles, I don't think that the military is necessarily the solution. And there are two possibilities here. Iran may appear chastened and they say, we want peace and we're no longer going to do anything, or they may rush headlong to the bomb. And so we won't know that for a while, but it may well be that this steals their resolve, that nationalism triumphs over reason, and that they do rush headlong. And I think all of us, don't want them to have irrational religious mullahs with a nuclear weapon. But there's a question of whether this works or doesn't work, and I think the time will tell that.